So I started drinking and doing drugs when I was 14, right around the time I got into high school, also a time when psychic abilities are usually very activated in the beginning of adolescence. And that was my coping mechanism. I think it saved my life, honestly, looking back. It was so hard for me to be here. And with the amount that I was feeling and the amount of data that I was overloaded with, I had no idea how to regulate. I just didn't know I didn't know what I didn't know. And so drinking and drugs really helped me to turn all that off and kind of just like fit in for a time. But about 10 years later, and even earlier than that, I had a lot of rock bottoms, what other people would consider rock bottom moments, like getting arrested, getting hospitalized, really, really dangerous situations where I had many opportunities to stop and say, okay, this is really dangerous. My reality is showing me that this is a really dangerous path. I'm going to die if I continue. And I think a part of me for a long time wouldn't mind. I didn't mind. I don't think I really wanted to be on this planet.
Welcome in. I'm Kimberly. I'm so excited about our guest today. She is young and fresh and exciting, and I'm loving where the conversation is going to go today. If you're enjoying this content, make sure you click that subscribe button and hit the notification bell so you don't miss any of our upcoming videos. And if you'd like to keep abreast of what's happening around the planet, but you're feeling a little overwhelmed, you might want to sign up for our Friday morning email newsletter. It comes out every Friday morning. It's very short, very sweet, but very informative. And we try to include a little bit of information on the important things that we see happening on the planet. It's super easy to sign up. You just click the little link in the description box down below. Super easy, super free, super fun. I think you're going to love it. Well, with that, I'd like to welcome in the delightful Sydney Campos. How are you today, Sydney?
Kimberly, it's such a pleasure to meet you, and thank you so much. I'm feeling so lit up and just grateful this morning. Beautiful, beautiful day, beautiful opportunity to collaborate with you.
Yeah, I'm feeling that kind of spring thing too. Like, oh, it just feels so fresh and new. It's hitting me as well. So I understand you're in California, I'm in Florida. So apparently the whole country from shore to shore is feeling it. You know what I would like to talk about? And we were talking before we started recording about how Sydney is what I see, I'm a little older, what I see is a new generation coming in with really astute skills and abilities kind of on board already, which is really fun for someone in my generation to see because it really affirms this changing of vibrational experience here on the planet. So, Sydney, why don't you kind of tell us a little bit about your story prior to your spiritual awakening, and then how things come online for you, and then what you're doing right now with those skills?
Beautiful. Yeah, and I can't wait to dive in more with you about like what you're kind of alluding to here. And I want to say just to start that more and more, I think we must recognize ourselves and each other as these infinite souls, and we have so much wisdom, so much capacity, so many gifts from many other lifetimes that now are so ripe to be accessed and awakened. And this is one of my favorite parts of being alive on this planet is to explore and play with these abilities that every single person alive has. And that intuition is the most normal thing ever, and that we all can learn to utilize this great gift, this great resource, and really to support ourselves and others. It's such a fun way to play. So I'm looking forward to sharing more about that. And this wasn't always what I believed or understood. I was born, like many intuitive people, into a really challenging family. I believe we choose our families perfectly to help us learn what our soul really wants to learn and understand, usually by extreme contrast, which was the case for me. And so I'll share it like this because one of the greatest lessons I wanted to learn as a soul is about unconditional love. I learned through my experience growing up the opposite and what it was like to be very codependent, very insecure, very low self-esteem, very disassociated, with lacking attunement and presence from my family around me, and a really difficult time just differentiating my energy from others, highly empathic, highly psychic, which is also an ability usually developed in kind of traumatic environments. You learn to track the field and feel what other people are feeling, really from a survival stance, to make sure you're okay. We don't know this is happening when we're kids. We're just doing what our body knows to protect us. And then later, upon awakening and evolving more, you can go many different directions when you have that kind of initial sensitivity really activated. For me, it was so uncomfortable to be alive and to be try to be a human and fit in. I had no ability to like understand how to take care of myself. I had no language to describe what I was feeling. I just thought something was wrong with me. I thought it was crazy. I didn't understand how people around me seemed to have it way more together. So I started drinking and doing drugs when I was 14, right around the time I got into high school. Also, a time when psychic abilities are usually very activated in the beginning of adolescence. And that was my coping mechanism. I think it saved my life, honestly, looking back. It was so hard for me to be here. And with the amount that I was feeling and the amount of data that I was overloaded with, I had no idea how to regulate. I just didn't know I didn't know what I didn't know. And so drinking and drugs really helped me to turn all that off and kind of just like fit in for a time. But about 10 years later, and even earlier than that, I had a lot of rock bottoms, what other people would consider rock bottom moments, like getting arrested, getting hospitalized, really, really dangerous situations where I had many opportunities to stop and say, okay, this is really dangerous. My reality is showing me that this is a really dangerous path. I'm going to die if I continue. And I think a part of me for a long time wouldn't mind, I didn't mind. I don't think I really wanted to be on this planet. I think from a young age, I wondered, what am I doing here? This is not what I signed
Yeah.
up for. This is
Yeah.
not.
This place doesn't feel right. I can remember the exact same
Yeah,
feeling when I was younger. So I can relate completely so far.
I think so many do because we come in, my understanding, I come in from a higher dimensional plane. And I come in because my soul wants to help. I've been here so many times and I want to come back and I want to help and serve and support and assist in this incredible ascension experience and also to come and play and enjoy. This is the most beautiful planet in the multiverse where we can feel and sense and again, all these things I realized, much later. But part of the journey was going through some of the darkest nights and really not wanting to be here and really just, like it's too much. It's so
Yeah.
difficult.
And I laugh all the time, Sydney, that our perception of how it's going to be when we're not in physical is wildly different than what it is when we actually incarnate. And it also seems a whole lot quicker than it is when we're in the physical. And I say all the time, I definitely suffer from overconfidence, coming in overconfidence. And I remember describing when I was younger and having very similar challenges to you. It almost sounds like the same story, different state, or same story, different family. I can remember describing to a therapist that my life felt like I was standing on a piece of greased glass that was floating in the ocean. In other words, there was no stability anywhere. And everything that I was just hanging on, it was a full-time job just to hang on.
Yeah, that's beautifully articulated. I really feel that. I completely understand. I mean, embodiment is the ultimate trip, and it never ends. And so, yeah, thanks for sharing that. Stability, that's like one of my core intentions these days, right? To be stable within myself, to be the calm amidst the storm, to be clear amidst the chaos. And so I guess just wrapping up whatever I was sharing, I got sober when I was 24 years old after a really, finally, it took a lot. And I was actually sitting with the therapist at one point too. It was part of the realization. And finally, I just told this woman the truth of what I was really doing. I was leading a double life. I was really carrying so much shame. I was falling apart. And I was, kind of at the peak of my addiction. And I was really unhealthy. on all levels. And I finally told this woman the truth of what I was doing, which was a lot of really scary stuff that I had never told anybody out loud. And the look on her face shocked me to the core. And I really feel that that was like a white light spiritual experience almost of like, oh my God. I felt, like what I was doing, if I continued, I was going to die. Something shifted. And I actually didn't get sober right after that, but it was like a few more situations similar that it was enough for me to be like, okay, wow, I actually, there's a small part of me that I think I want to live. So I have no idea how to live or how to be a person or how to really have relationships. I'd have no idea, but I think I want to be here. And that
Let me
looked,
ask, let me ask you this, Sydney, because I'm wondering, do you feel like looking back now that there was kind of a little nudge
yes.
coming in, like maybe there's something more than this, maybe something different's going to serve you, maybe you don't want to be doing this. Again, I'm wondering if it just took a little while to shift it.
I have a really strong support team. And this was 12 years ago now, over 12 years. And I understand now, looking back, that I have so much protection and physical like support. So many examples where I should have died. I should have fallen off a cliff. I should have gotten hit by the car. I was very, what I learned was called parasuicidal, where I just had no regard for my life. And I really, and I'm doing all these drugs and drinking, and I'm just letting a lot of entities kind of take me for a ride. That was also part of my journey and learning about what that actually is like to repattern and repair the field and the body and clear entities and all kinds of things, but so much protection, and I joke now that, we're not allowed to leave. We come in, maybe people listening relate. It's like we're not allowed to leave. We come in, it's hard, it's really hard and it's so painful. But it's part of the initiation. It's part of actually what we desired. What I desired at some level was to go through that initiation to understand the depth of capacity that is possible here and that I have. And then to remember from that foundation the gifts and the beauty and then the capacity to guide others, which is like the most fulfilling, incredible gift and really is the point, right? Love and service.
Mhm. And I have this saying because I understand the whole addiction process. And
Yeah.
I often say, train wreck today, spiritual master tomorrow. And when I see someone really struggling, like they're just in that can't get out, can't get out, can't get out, the absolute thing I don't do is write them off. I think keep an eye. There might be an amazing transformation really quickly because that ability to relate to those dark, dark, dark places is such a valuable tool as you start serving and working with others.
I honestly trust people so much more who have been through the ringer. Because I've been through it. I've been through more than most people have been through in many lifetimes. And and some of us on the planet now relate to that. It's like we had to go through a lot to wake up faster, to get on mission and remember we have a lot of work to do here, and it's going to be fun and it's going to be beautiful. But it was like, time to get on the journey. So I had my awakening at 24. And then it looked like, learning to live without drugs and alcohol and outside of nightclubs and getting sober in different recovery programs and spiritual community and remembering meditation and yoga and just learning to take care of myself and be present, honestly and then the memory of these different gifts and technologies and tools like energy healing, Akashic records, just intuitive guidance, all the different expressions of intuition naturally come online when, for me, I started to clear out density and different interferences through substances and just, attuned my nervous system to deeper presence. Our abilities naturally come back and amplify.
Yeah. How did it start coming online for you? Was it a result of meditation, yoga, a little bit of both?
Honestly, I feel like I did everything. I feel like sometimes I'm like, I've literally done it all. I feel like I was so hungry to feel better that I tried everything I could get my hands on. I was so curious, so just devoted. I'm like, anything that can help me feel better. And some of the things that really helped me, especially early on, were energy healing and meditation and yoga, totally. So those are like, even to this day, my favorite modalities and just things that I are just a part of my life. And especially energy healing. I had no idea. Although when I look back, I'm like, I did have experiences with energy healers. I just didn't know at the time. My guides, again, were always positioning me in these circumstances where I was meeting people synchronistically who were like sharing about Reiki with me, or just all these people placed on my path to guide me back, and in hindsight, it's so clear. But yeah, the first time I had a Reiki session, I, was guided to try that because I thought I was crazy. Even after I got sober and I was doing meditation and taking care of myself, and I started to have my intuitive awareness also come back online. Oh, another key piece, I talk about this in my books and things. I got off birth control. I had been on birth control since I was
Oh,
14 to age 24. And I got sober, but even into getting sober, I still felt like something was off. And I didn't have the understanding of how to articulate that, but I felt really off and I felt overwhelmed. And I had this awareness of like, my life looks better, but I still feel really anxious and something is off. And then I did this pretty deep cleanse. I did a, heavy metal detox with the assistance of a naturopath chiropractor. And I got off birth control, and that was huge. That changed everything. And I wonder if looking back, actually, part of why I also felt so disconnected and really reached for drugs and alcohol when I was 14 had to do with being put on birth control when I was 14, because my intuition is who I am. And that chemical interference of the birth control for me disconnected me from who I am, leading to further disassociation and just disconnection from my purpose and my essence. And so that I track back as being a really important milestone, getting off of that click, taking the time, doing the work to detox my body from those chemicals. And then my intuition came back. But as a super psychic empath, again, with no understanding of, these different ways to regulate my system, I felt so much anxiety. I felt a lot of overwhelm. I didn't know what was wrong. And the best way I could describe it, I was just reaching out for help, from people in my community. Two different people referred me to the same woman for energy healing. And I was like, I don't even know what this is going to do, but I trust it. I need to go try something. And after that session, I felt better than I had ever felt in my memory. I felt clear. I felt myself in a different way. And I was just hooked. I'm like, I need to understand everything I can about this. My healer told me the word empath changed my life. I had a label to describe how I felt my whole life. Suddenly there's nothing wrong with me. I'm not crazy. This is something I can learn about, and I can learn how to take care of myself. And so that was a huge shift in my journey.
yeah. One thing I think that empaths don't understand or it takes a while to realize is not everybody sucks up energy like an empath. It's like, that's my situation too. It's getting to that point where you understand that not everybody has these extreme sensitivities when they get into a situation. You can walk into a room and just know something went down there 30 minutes ago. It's
Yeah.
an unusual skill or gift that it takes a little bit of management to get used to.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. In my case, it took a lot to learn it. This was a skill developed in trauma, highly developed, multidimensional capacity to track people close to me, far away from me, psychically, physically, emotionally, on all levels. To again think of like a little child that doesn't feel the presence of the caretakers around them, right? And so
Mhm.
develops this capacity to be able to track them, to see how they're feeling, how they're doing, where they are, all because I wonder if I'm going to be okay, if I'm going to get what I need, if I'm going to be fed, if I'm going to, have the support that I need to survive. And so
Yeah,
it's such a great gift, but when you start to become sensitive or aware of this, it can, for many people, feel so overwhelming and you can feel drained and you can have, it's hard to differentiate what you feel or what you need, what you want, who you are, really. And this is an enormous unraveling for me, but the starting with energy healing, starting to develop that attunement to what I feel like, what clarity feels like, and then learning ways to take care of my energy and my body. It changed my whole life.
yeah. When did you start feeling a little less alone and a little more connected to off-planet energies?
Ah, gosh, when I feel that question now, I felt it my whole life, but consciously that came more into my awareness as I started my Akashic records practice in around, I think, 2015. But to be honest, at that time, I still had some judgment and fear really preventing me from communicating, I would say publicly, at the level that I was like receiving information, or I would have, sessions with clients, like private sessions, and these, information, off-planet information, messages, energy healing would come through. But I felt, I think, fear of sharing that insight or information outside of the more private sessions because at that time I was, I think, working through a lot of, feels like from other lifetimes, the fear of being killed or burned at the stake or, not seen as credible, these kinds of things. And I remember it actually being kind of a source of pain because I felt like I couldn't allow myself to articulate something that I'm really here to articulate. Like, as part of my purpose, part of who I am is to be that bridge and to normalize and to destigmatize, what we have access to. And it's so practical, it's so grounded, it's so real, and it's so full of love. And yet I remember really identifying with mentors at the time around 2016, 2017. I'd watch these people who were channeling and they would just straight up call it out like, this is a message from the Arcturian Council. And I was so magnetized to them. I'm like, wow, how can they speak about this so freely? Like, I'm getting this information, but I'm like blocked from sharing what I'm seeing. And am I blocking myself or is it just not time? And I remember that being a source of stress for me for a while. And I guess I had to also just clean out any judgment or fear and really connect to, what is it that I want to share? What am I really here for? What is the truth? And kind of get out of the way, let my ego get out of the way.
So how did it shift for you? Was it, for me personally, I've seen a tremendous shift in acceptance of this type of information just in the last, oh gosh, Sydney, maybe 3 or 4 years. I mean, from not open at all to like people are now hungry for it. Has that been your experience? And how did you finally kind of get to the point where it's like, okay, I'm good now. This is what I'm hearing. This is what I'm
Mm.
learning.
Honestly, I think it just took a lot of practice. I've done thousands of hundreds of sessions. It feels like thousands, probably hundreds is more accurate. And just so many sessions and it's just getting more comfortable. And I remember even at the beginning of my practice feeling energies or beings in the room when I'm doing sessions with people. And I had to get through being afraid of that. These different sensations and these different awarenesses. I think it's maybe normal. In my experience, it was a little bit scary at the beginning. I think maybe there's a fear of being, what comes through is like fear of being fully powerful or fear of really feeling
Oh,
true power and capacity. And for me, that took a lot of practice and a lot of, while also doing specific practices and energetic protocols to build this stability within myself, to feel like
yeah.
can be grounded and I can receive these energies and I can interact with these beings and different levels of consciousness and I'm okay. I'm safe. So that was something I had to really work through and it's something I see is actually common. I started my practice in 2015 with more of the channeling and Akashic Records guidance and did that very consistently and a lot of practice again. And then I was guided to start teaching others. People just started coming to me without even without me even knowing that's what I was called to do. People would ask, can you teach me? Can you mentor me? I want to study with you. And so I started sharing in that way. And through that, I saw how every single person, has these unique abilities and capacity to just communicate so multidimensionally. And then that also helped me to normalize this more for myself. Like, wait a minute, everybody can do this. And this is actually something I'm here to speak to and to make like the barriers to entry and all the hierarchical stuff that's been on this planet around, like, oh, the channelers are these special beings that are untouchable and tell me what to do. There's all these power dynamics we've been conditioned with on this planet for a long time. I'm here to disassemble, to dismantle a lot of those programs and to just make these technologies that we all have access to more accessible.
Yeah. Boy, that's exactly the same experience I've had in that. I've been following channeling for quite a while now. And the difference in the denseness of the energy and getting the information a few decades ago is so different than it is today. Today, channeling is very conversational. And I've been in conversation with people who they can just bring it in. There's no shift in energy necessarily. It is so much more readily available. And the fact is that we all come in with these gifts. This is our birthright, all these skills and abilities. It has not been encouraged on planet Earth for a long, long, long time. And now we're kind of stepping into the place where this is who we're becoming. This is where we're going. And that to me is like, oh, it's so exciting and a little different. And we were talking about this before we came on. For Sydney, this generation, they're coming in at a different vibratory level than my generation. So it's kind of fun to see. And I could say something like, oh, you young kids, you're just coming in all wired up. And for us older folks, it's just a little shift. It's like, okay, we're doing it different now.
Yeah, beautiful. I also want to acknowledge your comment about what you've noticed the last couple of years. I've noticed a distinct shift since 2018 in my experience and what I've been able to access. Something really changed for me, and who knows, chicken before the egg. Like I was doing a lot of work on my embodiment, nervous system healing. This is all a part of it, right? And then I was also doing tons of sessions, and I was traveling between these power portals on Earth like Sedona and Bali and Shasta, and just getting a ton of activation and amplified access, I would say. And something changed. And I was like, I don't know if I'm just accessing the Akashic records anymore. I was guided to no longer say, that's all we're doing. It felt like suddenly something else opened up. I'm like, wait a minute. I feel like I'm getting, I started to hear the term omniversal. I started to feel other energies and beings and started to feel like I was receiving guidance from beyond this multiversal construct and from beyond like the dimensions I was familiar traveling in and communicating through. And I started to, be taken kind of further out of my construct of time, and I'm like, wait a minute, I think some of the beings I'm really deeply connected to, and maybe even one of my origin points, is like from the future, best as we can
Oh,
understand in this dimension, and from beyond this, this universal architecture. And I can share more about that, I guess, but it was so fun to see what was opening up. And then I was seeing also a shift in kind of how I learned to channel or provide guidance. It became less about like what I now kind of call as spiritual entertainment and what lifetime are you this and what happened here and so much more. My guidance started to be more focused on what is in the way of you being present in this life now. What is in the way of you being in your body as your true self right now? And if it's helpful to have a past life insight about something that happened so you can unlock something in your body now that helps you be more present, we'll do that. Otherwise, we're not going to like give you all this distracting, entertaining information that it's not very useful for what is actually meant to be the priority at this time, which is to just be here. And frankly, to sit still and be a little bit more quiet so you can listen and more, I would say, pure energy transmission started coming through. I started to get guidance to work with people in less of a linear verbal way, which to me felt so good. I'm like, oh my God, I can do this. This feels so much easier, so much more authentic, and so much more powerful to just code remote transmissions and help people that way. So those are some of the shifts I saw. And then I would agree the last 3 years, about 2020, was that already 2020? I was guided to start my facilitator training program to offer really comprehensive training for people wanting to learn how to become an intuitive guide and Akashic Records practitioner. And then that journey has just been wild because even in the training curriculum, I'm constantly giving disclaimers like whatever I said a year ago, it's already changed, it's different, and there's less rules. And these books that I refer my students to, which are incredible from some of my teachers. Like I was the student of Linda Howe's kind of main apprentice, Christina Cross. And so that's like my lineage. And I honor that work and the writings and the guidelines, but it's from a different generation and from a different understanding of what we actually have access to. So I love these tools and these references, but I give so many disclaimers based on the experience I've had sharing in the last couple of years saying, well, actually, there's a shift now. for those of us that are accessing intuitive guidance, multidimensional insight, it's not a question of the rules or, is this allowed? Or you have to say a prayer before you access the records, or you have to ask the permission in this particular way. There's no fear, there's no rules. We're free, we have free will. We're creators. And that's part of the shift I've noticed is like, even as guides and advisors, how do we show up more in our creative potency and power and play kind of without these, you know, um, boundaries in a way? It's like much more boundless, the access that we
Yeah.
have. It's requiring a different set of agreements and a different way in which we show up as co-creators. So,
I see it more as potential. We're
hmm.
stepping into an area, just a time of potential. And you had said earlier there's fewer rules, and I think there's fewer rules about everything having to do with human right now. And that's where I see, instead of it being a rules-based existence, it's an existence about potential and creativity and exploration and new thoughts, new designs, new concepts, new creations. It's a very different world than the one that I grew up in, which was very, very linear. I almost think about life today compared to when I came in my formative years, 10, 12, 15, 17. I look back at people and they were almost in, this is not a criticism, it's kind of a descriptor of we almost were like cardboard cutouts
Hmm.
back then, where we just followed the plan of being a human on Earth.
Hmm.
Whereas now it seems that we're so much more dimensional than that. And the potential that we have in how we interact with each other is shifting dramatically. And where we're moving into is so much richer and deeper almost.
I love that analogy. And I was thinking that word and you said it, dimensionality. Yes, frequency has increased dramatically.
Mhm.
Consciousness has been allowed to expand. And another way to look at it is, I mean, and I've experienced this, maybe you have as well. I think the energy on the planet has finally, raised to such a level that more of who I am can actually come in, more of my higher dimensional aspects, more of my higher consciousness, self can come into my body, can actually vibrate, can embody, can imbue in this dimension. I've experienced this in the last 2 years, notably. There's been such an uptick in the planetary frequency and what the grids are able to really sustain here consistently that it really feels like more of my soul has come in and can come in, can thrive here. Whereas before, it was a little bit too dense. It didn't feel like the conditions were ripe for more of my octave, my frequency to actually be here. I wonder if you.
Yeah, gosh, that's a beautiful way that you put it. And I kind of had a visual of, just sort of a string in before, but now we're filling in. We're filling in the shape.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot more dimensionality to our bodies, to our conscious awareness of reality and how it's formed. And then we see this in relationships, right? And the depth of intimacy and connection that is now possible, that we're available for. And then this might at more of an awakening stage also present as a desire for more intimacy, a desire for more connection, because there's this inherent understanding that, wait a minute, so much more is possible. People are awakening every day now. It's so exciting where there's just more and more of the masses waking up and wondering. The first part usually of the awakening is, wait, there's more. There's more to this life than what I've been doing. I'm not a cardboard cutout. I'm not a robot that goes
Mhm.
to work every day. I'm not just here to make money and have so I can retire and whatever. It's like I'm here for this moment. I'm here to fully live. And what does that actually mean?
Yeah. And the line, yeah, I don't think I want to do this anymore. You
Yeah.
know, that comes up a lot. Well, are you interested in doing a little bit of channeling? And I'll tell you why I ask is I would like to get, because what we've established is things are changing on Earth. And I think 2024 is going to be really special in that we're going to shift to a place that's going to provide for us kind of a little bit of an opening to where humanity is going and changing the skill set, particularly maybe not so much for someone in your age group or the people that came in about the time that you did, but for those of us who've been here a little while, we've been working on a certain set of rules. This is how you do it on Earth. It's different now. So
Yeah.
I'm wanting to ask some questions about what skills would it really serve us to have on board as we move forward? How does that sound?
It's so fun. I'm being tickled with energy because my guides are so excited that we're having this conversation and that we're able to bring through this information and support for those ready. And then I see the image again of like, yes, we all came in the planet at different times, but again, the age is almost like an imaginary piece construct of the human experience because we're all infinite souls. And then some souls have had certain experiences that inform certain memories that we have access to. And then there's the body. It's like we're being asked to have a new understanding of the body and the information that it holds, and that it
Yeah.
must be understood that what I think you're speaking to is the time that one comes into the planet is an impact. There's an impact to the body based on the energy, the frequency that the planet is holding. This impacts, when you think about a baby being born, there's a frequency attunement that happens when that being comes out of the mother, even when it's being grown in the mother, there's a frequency attunement happening based on the level of energy on the planet. And so certain bodies that came into existence in a certain time frame are holding a certain frequency attunement, which is different
Yeah.
from those bodies that have come in after 1987, after 1995, after 2005, for example, where there were different significant upticks in the planetary vibration that have allowed for less and less density to be incurred in the body. So many beings before around 1987, this is a very critical milestone, and that's actually when I was born. And there were things happening on the planet like the harmonic convergence, and there's a big consciousness awakening. But beings who came in prior to that, it's like you just have more density in your cells, in your body. There's just a little bit more structure to kind of work through in order to let old memories, old identities go. There's more of a rigidity. And this can be really challenging to just let go. And then you see younger people, especially like Gen Z and people, under 25 now, they're just lighter. Trauma doesn't stay stuck in their body for as long or at all. They don't have as rigid of attachments to their identity structure and personalities. They're much more fluid in some ways, and they have different challenges, but they you'll just notice this. And so to those wondering, how do you take care of yourself if you're having some more density and some rigidity and more of that attachment to a more hyperlinear way of being and orienting? How can you start to really take care of yourself to develop more of your intuitive abilities, more of your sensitivities and awarenesses, and just come into more presence and ease? The best thing that you can do is really, I hear the word simplify, simplify. Simplify, because you're moving from a dimension, a reality of so much complexity. And so it will be unique for each being to ask yourself, how do I simplify my life? How can I simplify my self-care, my rituals, my routines? What's a ritual that brings you into a feeling of this simple connection between yourself and source? What does that mean for you? Many also at this time will be invited to redefine their understanding of God, of source, of divinity, because this is another part of the construct that we are emerging out of on this planet at this time, is to reclaim one's true understanding of divinity. This must be defined for you by you. This is the key to sovereignty and to removing, releasing from one's being the density that can keep one entrapped in some of these conditionings of disempowerment. I'll stop there for now. How's that?
That was lovely. I think of it as we're talking about, generations coming in different places and with a different energy field. I almost look at it like a relay race,
Mm.
like passing the baton. Like, okay, I kind of lay the energy down here and we'll pass the baton and then energy moves a little bit more forward. It's exciting for me to see it because what I see when I look forward is clearly there's going to be some bumpiness because anytime you upend a reality system or shift it dramatically, there's some changes. But I see just this incredible potential for humanity. And with so much, we have a very, very rich reality system here that is so, it is so worked out in so many ways. And once that human creativity and potential gets unleashed, it's going to be exciting to watch. What are some old habits or old beliefs that would we might be well served to take a look at and maybe let go if they don't feel good anymore? And then some new thought patterns that we can bring in that could be helpful for the next year.
Yeah, I want to name, I'm just feeling the vibration of this year, of this upcoming year, of the next 2 years, so viscerally. And it feels so light. It feels like so light and fast moving in a way, and just so like full of ease, like my system just settles in a way. And I hear the message, we will be allowed to run at more of our full speed. Like the energy on the planet will allow and invite more of our like efficiency. That we're able to move and operate more efficiently. It's almost like the energetic conditions on the planet now allow for these more ancient, in a way, or future operating systems to come online, which are so much more efficient, so much more multidimensional. We're utilizing more of our full capacity, not just the linear, the mind, which
Yeah.
operates out of survival, but we're going to learn more how to use our higher mind, which is going to be accessed through feeling. So the best thing that we can do is really come to understand for each and every one your unique way of accessing your emotional intelligence, your feelings, to really become more intimate with your desires, with your heart, with your body. And this will be different for each and every person, right? But how do you connect with your desire, with your calling for being alive, with your inspiration? This is really actually one of the strongest guides I hear is inspiration. We're moving into a time now of inspiration. Inspiration, what gives us life. This is what moves us through reality, as opposed to the last couple thousand years of survival and
Yeah.
efforting and controlling and all the things that come from orienting from a more linear, identity focused, kind of like boxed in, compartmentalized way of relating. And we're learning now to move from inspiration, to move from feeling, from desire, from these really natural propulsions that are conditioned in the body to guide us in synchronicity, in alignment, in magnetic resonance with the people we're meant to connect with. And really into so much more playfulness and curiosity and fluidity and adaptability, and just all the ways in which we're letting the different boxes we've let ourselves be defined by fall away, and it can feel a bit unsettling at first, especially if you've been really connected to a particular identity that can feel safe. I know who I am as long as I'm in this box. I know what to do. I know how other people relate to me. And something about that has felt secure because it's what we have modeled to us in our whole world. We're this is our economic system. This is a lot of our social and educational system. And yet we're learning to evolve beyond this and to see through the boxes and to see through the labels because we're connecting with feeling, connecting with that deeper discernment beyond the conditioning of what you've been told and programmed to do. And so, what's a simple way to start accessing that inner voice, more of these subtle feelings? They can be so subtle sometimes, but the most powerful reminders of the path that we're meant to really follow. Meditation, breath, movement, and sound. These are the most ancient technologies of embodiment. And what will that be for you? For each person, it must be unique. But there can be some kind of a combination of that formula that will help you to connect more with your present, with your desire, with your presence. And you're going to learn. It's almost like you're learning to play a new instrument, right? Learning to
Yeah.
listen to the music, learning to create new sounds. And so, actually, for this, for whoever's listening now, I feel really strong guidance to affirm working with sound, working with your voice, working with your body's own capacity to use sound as a way to clear density from the body is very useful and helps you to get out of the mind. If you ever play with toning, just playing with sound, making all kinds of silly sounds, toning, holding the sound for a long time, ohms, all kinds of sounds, you'll notice you can't be thinking. You can't be in your mind at the same time. And so, a really helpful practice is to play with sending sound to different parts of your body. You can start to play with breaking up energies, which can be thought forms, can be traumatic memory storage, all kinds of densities. And you can literally send the sound to these places in the body and break them up and help to release the density. And then, with more space, you feel more intuitive, you feel more connected, and it's easier to hear and really trust those subtle body reminders that are guiding you into your path.
Yeah, those are such beautiful tips and techniques because I feel like there are a lot of people on the planet that have invested a lot of time and energy doing what they were supposed to be doing,
Mm.
as opposed to what they would have chosen to do on their own. And sometimes that doing what I'm supposed to do or, living in that box doing the things that society expects of us is, living in this particular civilization, this is just what you do. That there's just been a lot of loss of trust for that inner urge. Like, oh, what I really feel like doing is this, but I can't because I got to go do my job or I got to do this one thing. This is accepted. This is not. How do you work with someone who has lost that understanding of the things that they're attracted to for a reason?
Yeah, this one hits so close to home. I mean, this has been my journey as well. It's and honestly, what comes up is like inner child and working with the inner child, working with this inner who were you when you were this little kid and what did you really love to do? It's so simple. It's all already set up. It's all designed. Whatever you loved to do when you were little and you weren't thinking about it and you were just naturally playing in a particular way, you could have done that forever. It's usually what you're here for. It's usually directly related, whatever you were doing then, whatever you loved most is a key, gift that you're here to give. We're all here to give a gift. We're all here to give a very unique service through our presence, and to find out what that is maybe the whole point of being here, and then to actualize that. And it's wild. Maybe you've had this experience. I feel like I have actualized that. And then even when you think you've arrived, life will give you another initiation to remind you, wait a minute, there's actually more. And how do you want to be even more authentic? And what are other layers of inauthenticity that are now ready to be let go of? And how can you let go of who you thought you were now? And just deeper and deeper, But at the beginning, I had no connection to my desire or I had no idea who I was. I mean, we spoke a little bit about empaths and if you grow up highly sensitive and you're tracking everybody else and understanding them better than you understand yourself, it can feel so hard to even begin to feel or hear or trust what you want, And then there's so many conditioned ways of orienting to desire, to your point of like how we're trained to be successful, to be valued, to be credible, to be who society wants us to be understood, And that's a whole thing to really unravel. How I work with people, really, people come now to work with me around deeper authenticity, and they're like, I want to be more myself. I want to be more real. And I want to have depth and intimacy and true abundance in my life, which is really this feeling of trust, trust in the present moment, trust in, God or higher power, just more trust and ease, really. I would say really starting with developing a relationship with your inner child is such a useful tool, at the beginning of that journey. There's a lot more, but I would say that can be so much actually if this is new to you. I remember at the beginning when someone first, snuck that up on me, really. They're like, we're going to meet your inner child. And I had no idea what that meant. And it
Mhm.
was terrifying because I was invited in a visualization to meet this part of me. that I didn't even know and I had abandoned. You know, my inner child, when I was invited to connect with it, it didn't even want to it didn't even want to see me, you know. So this is a way of working with the subconscious. This is a tool that we can use to see how our inner world, how our inner being, how our relationship with ourselves is calibrated and where there needs to be repair. And from here, we can then start to really access the deeper trust, more self-esteem, sense of self-love, confidence, and you know, listening to this voice within that is just wanting to tell us what it really wants, why it's here, who it is. And it's just a gateway to so much more of our multidimensional selves and aspects. But for me, that's really where it began. And I really can't recommend that work enough.
Yeah. And the way that I see it is that as you heal yourself, you're healing the planet. Because as we heal and learn to trust that which we love doing it for a reason. And when
Mm.
we walk into that space of really believing in how we feel and supporting that, we become more of who we're here to be. We become a more lovely family member. We become a more interesting and engaged community member, which then we become, a better member of our state. And it just goes out from there. It's
Mm.
that, it's starting to really trust yourself and love yourself and honor that who you are. It sounds so, new agey, cliche, but it's true. This is how the planet gets healed. This is how we heal the wounds that have been accumulating for the last, I don't know how long. And we head off into a new direction that's a lot more supportive of who we really are.
I look at it as a big puzzle, this planet, this dimension, the game we're playing. And we each are a very unique piece of this perfectly designed, divine game or puzzle. And if you're not being who you are, you're not being the piece that you're meant to be.
Yeah.
And then
R-
the whole thing, it's not harmonized, you know? So absolutely. And it's fun. Like the more you start to feel like yourself, and the more you allow yourself to be who you are and to just be. You know, it is the funniest cliche. It's like be here now or just be. And that's part of the shift, though. It's like, yeah, get out of the mind. There's not so much to figure out or know or understand or less talking, you know, being. How do you feel? How does it feel being you without any description? Just feeling, learning to be with your sensations, learning to be with the emotions, recognizing that change is the only constant. There's no attachment, you know, there's no identity. It's just, it's you. It's you and God and all these reflections of you and God everywhere. And what's the game that you're here to play? And maybe it's meant to be fun. Maybe it's meant to be a little bit more enjoyable. Maybe it's meant to be a little bit more light. Maybe we're meant to have a lot of depth and a lot of genius and brilliance. But my guides have been like making this joke to me lately, like, it's not meant to be that deep. Like everything can be this big spiritual awakening and this ascension experience and this, you know, like it's so intense and serious and we have this mission. And then also maybe it's not that deep. Like maybe we're these infinite, incredible, wise beings and we're here to have fun and we're here to be like children again. And we're here actually to like just love ourselves and love each other and be love.
I'm signing up for that.
Yeah.
That sounds great to me. Fun is my cup of tea. Gosh,
Yeah.
Sydney, this has been such a lovely conversation. Thank you so much. I look at the journey, the trajectory of your life, and it's just magnificent. There's so many deep, rich experiences, and what you're doing now is just so very important and needed and a little bit fun. So, how do we find out more about you?
Thank you so much. Yeah, I've had such a blast connecting and sharing and playing. And I want to mention, you know, my two books are really helpful for all the things we talked about. My first book, The Empath Experience, What to Do When You Feel Everything, came out in 2018. It's helped a lot of people. So if you're resonating with that part of our conversation, I think that would be a really helpful resource It's basically the book I wrote when, I wish I had had when I was born. And then my newest book, I'm Ascending. Now what? And a lot of
Oh,
practices in there. It's a manual to embodied ascension, which is what we're talking about. And I give you all the practices, everything I know around how to create a body that can be a channel for source. And so
yeah.
those are it. And then my website, just my name, Sydney Campos, and I offer courses and sessions and maybe retreats. Again, I've been doing retreats for many years. Right now, I'm kind of being guided to a new focus point, which is like building a company that is around more infrastructural systemic change, which is really exciting. And yeah, and continuing to offer healing and support to those who are called.
Yeah, beautiful. And the books, everything will be listed in the description box down below. Both the books sound fabulous. The second one, You're Ascending Now What? Perfect for 2024. Perfect. Handbook. We're talking handbook material here for 2024. It's going to be an interesting ride, and being equipped is always a good plan. All right. Sydney, thank you so much for your time. This has been lovely. I hope you'll come back and see us again.
I would love that. Thank you, Kimberly, and thank you for the beautiful, just the service that you are providing. I can tell that you're really helping so many people and providing a platform for beautiful energy to get out into the planet. So thank you.
Thank you. It's a lot of fun. That's the secret. It's a lot of fun. Appreciate it. Come back and see us sometime. All right. Bye, everyone. I hope you enjoyed this video. Coming up next, this is a good one. Or you might really like this one too. Either one of them could be perfect for you. Before you leave, don't forget to subscribe.